Hello, welcome to the channel Have Roots Will Travel. My name is Lisa Elvin Stoltari, and I'm a genealogist and a passionate traveler. Over the last several years, I've been exploring les filles du roi, les filles mariées, founding mothers of North America. That's what I call them. And they are truly amazing women, and often they got forgotten. So it was my intention, I guess 4 years ago, when I started, I said, I want to pay homage to each and every one of them because their story is sometimes lost to history. Their last names are lost to history, and they take on obviously the role of the matriarch of whatever family they have married into. I wanted to pay homage to their role. So with that being said, let's get on with the show and have a look at our fille du roi of this episode. But before we begin, let me remind you to subscribe, like, and notify. All of that really helps me out, especially that subscribe thingy. I have a goal to reach 3,000 subscribers by the end of this year. Hopefully that will work out. And also for those of you who would like to contribute to the channel, you may do so by becoming a member, anywhere from 99 cents up a month, or you can also join or donate at PayPal button, which is all found on my Have Ritual Travel website. And we also have a super thanks, they call it, at YouTube, and you can do that for each episode that you really like. So all of that helps me and helps the channel grow. Thank you ever so much to all of you who have participated thus far. And with that being said, let's get on with it. Les Filles du Roi, episode 330, Jeanne Beauveau. And she comes to us from a viewer request. I did not have her in my files. So let's get to know Jeanne a little bit better. So Jeanne was born in 1653 in Nogent-sur-Seine, and her parents were Julien Beauveau and Catherine Faux. You can see by the map that she is part of the region of France known as Grand Est, and inside of that region is the département or county of Aube, and this is where she would have, and you can actually see Nobe, the Nogent, right there in the on the very outermost left-hand side, which means that it's fairly large community. Now it began as a Gallo-Roman settlement, so you know that it's extremely old, and in the 1100s, we begin to see actual records, and by the 1190, the town was part of the powerful county of Champagne, and this brought trade and market halls and a spot on that busy road between the fairs of Provence and Troyes. In 1359, the town was attacked during the Hundred Years' War, and in 1442, a fire destroyed much of it. During the War of Religion in the late 1500s, Protestants captured and burned parts of the town again. The fortifications were eventually torn down by the king in 1598. Now, the church that she would have been baptized in, the Church of Saint Laurent, has gained works by local sculptors like Pierre-Paul Dubois and Alfred Boucher. And this obviously is a church that would have been standing since the medieval times. So just extraordinary. One note about Nogent-sur-Seine is that it began its history, as we have seen, in the Gallo-Roman times, and now it sits very near a nuclear power plant. So I'm just like, it merges the extreme past with the extreme future. It just boggles the mind of how far it's come. So this is the area that Jeanne would have come from. At about 19 years of age, Jeanne decided to come to New France. She would arrive aboard La Nativité pour Québec on August 2nd, 1672. We do not have any information about her dowry or whether or not her parents were still alive. We know that Jeanne arrived. The groom that she selected and who selected her, his name was Jean Blet de Gazelle, and he was born about 1641 in Sarrazac in France. His parents were Pierre Blet and Françoise Jardinière. Sarrazac is a small farming village in the region of Nouvelle-Aquitaine. And inside of that region, we have the Département of Dordogne. And the roots of that community stretch back to Gallo-Roman times. Its name literally comes from a man named Serratius, meaning the estate of Serratius. And it was first recorded in 832, and the village was given to a monastery by a local noble family. And by the 12th century, it had its own feudal lords and ties to the powerful Viscounts of Touraine. Throughout the Middle Ages, Sarrazac was known for its market and its weaving trade, and it likely had some fortifications. Key landmarks include the Church of Saint-Genis and the 17th century Chateau de Creuse. There's also a lantern of the dead and traces of a medieval hospital in there, so just extraordinary. Today, Sarrazac remains a quiet rural community where fields, forests, and centuries-old architecture tell the story of a village that has endured for over 1,000 years. Just amazing. Jean would arrive in New France as a soldier, as so many did before. He was with the Compagnie of Saint-Ours, the troop of Saint-Ours, and he would arrive on September 12th, 1665. All we know is sometime in 1672, they were married at Saint-Ours. Part of the region is the parish and all of that hadn't been established yet. I suspect this was marriage records that were from a traveling preacher, or not preacher, but a priest, as so many in those rural communities had. And many times when I've done stories about Saint-Ours, I do not have marriage records for that reason. Let's get to know a little bit about the place where they settled at Saint-Ours. Saint-Ours was actually established in 1672 by Jean Talon when he granted the land to Pierre de Saint-Ours, who had been a captain in the Carignan-Salers regiments. And in fact, that was the captain that Jean would have been serving under. So that is very common for you to kind of follow the captain. I mean, you know your guy, and so you sort of follow him wherever he is. So not surprising that they established themselves. The church was opened, the church registry was opened in 1681, and the mill, which would grant kind of more of a a true settlement flavor to it, wasn't built until 1703. And so that's one of the reasons why the seigneurie grew so slowly. And ultimately, in the 19th century, the St. Ours Canal was built, linking the Russian River to broader trade networks. And modern St. Ours is a quiet rural community that really it brings history to life. Now, I have the displeasure of telling you that in July of 2025, a month ago, as I record this, the St. Ours Church was burned to the ground. And so a part of history, that the picture that you see on your right, that is gone. And they tried valiantly to save it. But again, as so many churches, during that time, hundreds of years ago, were burned and then rebuilt. And of course, this one will be rebuilt. But that was definitely something that was part of the historic part of Quebec and was a tragedy. And you can Google it and see the news about this extraordinary church that we've lost. As we've lost so many things, we need to remember them and have a picture if we can, and keep going on. And because these people would have done the same thing, and we need to kind of go, okay, next. And so that church will get rebuilt, and as time goes on, I will probably fill you in on that as well. They would go on to have 10 children. Their first son would pass away sometime after 1681. Anne would marry François Carcy, but would not leave any descendants. Jeanne would marry Pierre de Desrosiers, would have 3 children, who would all live to be to leave descendants. Pierre's mother was Marie Rose Collet, who we profiled in episode 1709. I've posted the link for you as well. We have Matrin, who would marry Geneviève Besnier, but not leave any descendants. We have Jean, who would not marry. Barbe would marry Pierre Benoit and leave 6 descendants. Have 6 children who would leave 6 descendants. Marie-Elisabeth would marry Etienne Benis de Charly and Louis Chevalier, but not leave any descendants. Pierre would marry Angélique Niquet and would have 2 children, both of whom would leave descendants. He would also have a natural child with Thérèse Bedillac. Thérèse's mother was Catherine Lalard, who we profiled in episode 66. You can have a look at that. We have Madeleine, who married Louis Foisy and would have 5 children, all of whom would survive and leave descendants. And then we have Marie-Françoise, who would not marry. We find them in the 1681 census in Saint-Ours. Pierre Dextre, what a name, right? They figured out. Jeanne Bouca, and then we have Jean, Anne, Jean et Matrin, who were twins. Barbe, and they have 3 Bazacornes, which are 3 goats. 5 Arpents à Valère, which are about 3 acres, 3.5 acres of land. Jean would pass away at 81 years of age in August of 1722, August 22nd to be exact. He and Jeanne would have been married almost 50 years. She arrived in Quebec on August the 2nd, 1672. So the odds are they were married sometime after August. We don't have an exact date, so it's pretty close. I mean, I suppose it could be, they could have been married a week after she arrived, and it would have been 50 years. But nonetheless, they survived together for that long, and that's the key, isn't it? Jeanne herself would pass away at 84 years of age, and she would leave us 54 descendants as of 1729. What a lovely love story we have in Jeanne and Jean, and how they really truly created a life together and were pioneers at Saint-Ours. I really enjoy telling this story because sometimes it's nice just to look at a life that they began. They got married, they had children, they lived together for a very long time and then passed away. Sometimes it's that easy and that simple, but it is important to honor that the quietness, the quiet strength that would have been Jeanne and Jean. And we thank you, Jeanne, for coming to our shores, for contributing to the big picture of New France. You are part of that tapestry, and we bless your memory. Thank you so much. And I also want to say thank you to my patrons, supporters, and subscribers. You all are wonderful and have always been there for me through supportive, thoughts and critiques and all of that. I appreciate each and every one of you. And with that being said, I will see you on the next episode of Les Filles du Roi. Until then, au revoir.